Live from New York, it's Donald Trump. The presidential candidate is set to host Saturday Night Live next weekend. He won't, in fact, November 7th to be exact. He won't be the first candidate, though, to appear on the show or even to host it. But Trump taking center stage does open NBC up to some potential trouble from the FCC's Equal Opportunity Clause. Now, that mandates broadcast stations to equal airtime. And basically, it has to offer it to all political candidates. So should SNL be worried about this? Let's talk with our legal panel. Robert Schalk is a defense attorney and a former prosecutor, and Misty Maris is a trial attorney. Okay, so equal time is equal time, and this is a broadcast network. Hillary Clinton, as we know, recently did a skit. She got a total of 3 minutes and a few spare seconds. He is going to be hosting the show, which is going to gain him about 22 minutes of free advertising. If you're a legitimate candidate, can you fight this?
You absolutely can. You can request the equal airtime. You can go to an NBC affiliate station, say, I want the same 22 minutes that Donald Trump received, and all you have to do is show that you're a legitimate candidate in that state. And you know what that does? That gives no control to those affiliate stations. They have to put you on, and they lose complete control over their programming.
Robert, there is an actual contest, but it's not necessarily being contested by a legitimate candidate. We're talking long-shot Democratic candidate and law professor Larry Lessig. And he has sent a letter to NBC affiliates demanding an equal opportunity to appear on their stations under the law, which states that if candidates are allowed to use a broadcast station, that other candidates be allowed the same opportunity. But it does not necessarily apply to him, correct? If he were to fight this in court, because he's not really a legitimate candidate.
Right. Remember, this is an FCC rule. This is not an election law rule. So there is not a lot of case law where you're going to find anyone defining what a legitimate candidate is. But I think if Mr. Lessig, leave it to a law professor of all people to bring up this obscure section of the law, but he brings up it's more for the point of it. He's getting publicity for it, number one. He's bringing to light for a lot of the legitimate candidates. I mean, if Chris Christie, Marco Rubio, some of these Republican candidates are sick and tired of Donald Trump getting free advertising for up to, you said, 23 minutes on Saturday Night Live, if they want to, they can absolutely invoke their right.
Back in 2008, Republican candidates also appeared in sketches. Remember vice presidential candidate Sarah Palin, John McCain, but those were just minutes.
Right.
We've also uncovered one other bona fide presidential candidate having hosted the show while actively campaigning, and that was the Reverend Al Sharpton. That was back in December of 2003. It should also be noted that when Steve Forbes hosted in 1996, he had in fact suspended his campaign 1 month prior to the TV episode. So what if legitimate candidates like Marco Rubio, Ted Cruz, Carly Fiorina were to come out and say, we want equal time?
They're going to get it. They're going to get it in those local affiliate stations where they have a connection to that state. It's going to happen. They're going to be able to get that time, and they're going to have the opportunity to speak their mind for 22 unfettered minutes.
And let's just say that they don't necessarily want to host. They just want equal time, because not everybody wants to be on Saturday Night Live or doesn't want to necessarily host. Maybe a few minutes. I would think that's actually a lot of pressure to host as a presidential candidate. But they want equal time. Now, if they were to give equal time and be pressured to in court, all 15 candidates put together, that's like 5 hours of television.
Absolutely.
I mean, is NBC willing to take that risk?
They obviously are, because, and I think that you see how much ratings that Donald Trump brings to any network he goes on, every show that he brings. The first person to tell you how much he increases the ratings is Donald Trump.
Right.
And NBC is going to make millions and millions of dollars on advertising dollars during that Saturday Night Live. They're going to be able to ratchet up those ad sales, probably double or triple what they normally do. So, I mean, NBC obviously is willing to take the chance, and we talked about it. The interesting aspect is we're 2 weeks out. The only person to bring this up is the unknown Democratic law professor. Why aren't the mainstream candidates exercising their right to their time?
I think the NBC is most definitely, it's not like this hasn't gone up through their legal department and they haven't talked about it with the higher ups about what's going to happen when this can of worms, comes to fruition. It's that they know this will get the ratings and it will bring Saturday Night Live to a whole other level in that time slot.
So they're not really necessarily worried about the legal fees they could potentially face in court.
It does not seem like they are. There's no way that that hasn't been considered. I mean, this is really going to be a big deal. And we know from the way that the presidential race has been unfolding, Donald Trump is all over the place, and it's going to bring in more viewers.
Not only is this law professor contesting this, but there are also other groups out there that are protesting against NBC, because NBC is sort of going back on what it originally had intended. They They didn't want to give Donald Trump any airtime because of his remarks against Hispanics. They decided to pull, Miss Universe.
Right.
They didn't want to have anything to do with it.
Ended The Apprentice.
Now,
yeah.
all of a sudden, he's hosting Saturday Night Live. It just goes to show that a lot of the mainstream, even the mainstream media, just absolutely don't have a backbone.
No, they don't. They're looking for the
It's just
ratings.
ratings.
They know
Money
they will
and
get the
ratings.
ratings and advertisements. I mean, Saturday Night Live is a show that
Yeah.
people do watch live. Now with DVR, you don't see it as much anymore.
We have to look at the polls now, though, and it is much different, okay? Because 2 weeks ago when they announced that he would be doing this, Ben Carson wasn't leading in the latest Quinnipiac poll. So now Ben Carson is a real threat.
Yes.
I would say of all the candidates, if Ben Carson were to come forward and say, look, I want to host, they have no choice, or do they go to court? I mean, what happens?
I think they should consider allowing him to host because, again, you're ratcheting up the ratings. You're ratcheting up their advertising dollars. You're getting all the attention to NBC, to a show who has lost some star powers over the years. So you have an opportunity to either, package Saturday Night Live as, the center of the presidential nomination from the Republican side.
I mean, here you have Carly Fiorina, who is only raised in the single million digits, as opposed to Hillary Clinton, who has 25 million. Jeb Bush has in the tens of millions. So when you look at it, really, it is unfair because this is free advertising.
Right. Well,
that's
what this
that
law's
Donald Trump
for.
will be getting.
That's why we have that. That's why the FCC has the rule. Get her out there. See if she can get her equal time. And I think she will. If she comes out and contests it after that show,
I know, but I wonder
she'll get her
who's the
time.
bad guy? How badly will they be perceived if they actually contest it? Because they have every legal right to do so.
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
Yeah, they sure do.
All right. Thank you so much, Robert Schalk and Misty Maris.
Thank you,
Great to
Julie.
talk to you both.